So what is to be done? Now that we've gone from the Reformation all the way up through the revolutionary periods, through the 19th century, to the present day, to the early 20th century, where we see that things were rotten then, but not so clearly, in a much more disguised form, right up to the present, where the rottenness is out in the open. What are we to do? Well, we know we have to get back to Catholic Christendom, because that's the only template which allows for a community to thrive. And if you think that's an exaggeration, our communities in the Western world are dying demographically. Morality is the centre of this. If the morality is wrong, demographic death is assured. And our morality is wrong. Get back to Catholic morality, demographics will improve. Don't get back to Protestant morality, because with Protestant morality, you could be married and never have kids. Now, God bless those who are married and can't have kids. But the generality would be marriage produces children. The fact that not only marriage is often sterile deliberately by choice, or it produces just one child, not the absolute minimum of 2.1 that are needed, but that marriage is itself not pursued. And so children are often born without the necessity of two parents raising them. But overall, the birth rate is too low. All this are consequences of the moral code of Catholicism being rejected. And it's the only one that we can use to recover demography in the West. Knowing the answer is one thing. Knowing the problem is another thing. Knowing the answer is one thing too, but we have to know how to get back there. And I'm afraid this is where there's bad news. There's bad news and there's good news. The bad news is we ain't going to do it. Even if we were to get a pope of the quality of Pope St. Pius X heading the church again, things are too far gone for him to have, I think, for him to have even great influence in the church. There are so many rotten eggs in the church. But when you come to the Western civilization itself, even if you had Pope St. Leo the Great or Pope Gregory the Seventh, you could not, Innocent the Third, you could not bring the West back. And this is where the Old Testament is very useful, because God does not usually dive in and just get a nation and shake it up and then put it back. He uses other forces to do that. In our case, we have forces within. We have a vast number of people of a different religion here, don't need to name that religion, who are hostile to the values of the West. The old-fashioned West. And there are people outside who we antagonise. And I'll name the Russians. We antagonise the Russians. The British particularly. Donald Trump is much more sensible about this, but the entire British establishment and most of the American state want us to be in an adversarial relationship with the Russians, and that can lead to accidental nuclear warfare. China is another one with whom there is this adversarial posture. And then there are other nations outside of our control. Pakistan, India, North Korea, and perhaps the most dangerous of all, and this has implications theologically, but I can't go into them, I'm sorry, Israel. The most dangerous of all, the biggest risk of all, which, from my theological perspective, I would say is the greatest likelihood of pulling the world down. But I'll say no more than that.